Okay, good evening, everyone, or it's evening now. This will be for release tomorrow. I want to get through these questions as quickly as possible so that we're not making. I know some of you said that the previous videos were a little too long, so I'm going to see if we can't get through these a little quicker than usual. So I'm going to jump right into the questions. Got a few little things I want to explain, just kind of get everybody on the same page. And I understand some of the tone. Uh, and it's warranted. So let's jump right in. So the big greenhouse submitted a question. What exactly are we waiting on for more financing? Have they come back at you with more questions, requirements, etc.? Requirements and questions, not so much. We're waiting on terms. So this answer varies depending on the source of the financing. We're not dealing with commercial banks. We are dealing with or traditional lending officers. I know that's what many of you are familiar with. You go to a bank, you put your application in, they say yes or no, and that's it. In the process, they'll ask for more information and more questions. That's not what we're dealing with. We're dealing with private investment groups, even some firms that are small house firms that are dealing with, putting out smaller blocks of capital, which is what we're looking for in blocks of about $180,000 to $200,000. Obviously, some of these blocks are much, much higher. They go into the millions of dollars. That's where Bancorp would come in with the SBA. Um, you know, you have to understand that parameters change. Now, one thing that's changed is costs have gone up, so we've had to adjust for some of the material cost increases. So that's something we had to go back and put in there because we're dealing with very, very thin budgets. We're not padding it, if you will, and say, okay, the unit cost $180,000. Let's ask for $250,000. We're not doing it. We're asking for what we need with very little margin. Of course, we put a little extra in there because things happen. There may be a component that comes in that may not work. We may not have time to do an exchange. We just do the order and we'll work out the financing. The reason I bring that example up, that happened on the demo. So we just had to order additional components and then it all works out in the wash. And of course, many of these firms, we're working around their schedules. They're dealing with multiple projects. Sometimes we're prioritized. Sometimes we were deprioritized. So, or let's say a project comes up that needs immediate financing. That happened one time, and that was an existing customer of theirs, so that we kind of got pushed back. They came back to the table, and I'm going to go into this with some of the other answers. Is that sometimes they come up with terms that we feel are a little too onerous, and it's not really in our best interest to engage or accept those terms. So that's kind of the gist of it. And the other question he had was, I guess you had several questions, was do you believe that H2O will shortly turn UATG to a company that generates real wealth? Do you see any way that this could not happen? Yes, we obviously have a lot of confidence in H2O's potential. Um, yes, there's a lot of risk factors with anything, especially when you're dealing with this particular industry. Uh, we're subject to environmental rules that could change at any time. Um, Changing a price on oil as far as the spot price, that's adjusted a few things. Luckily, our costs and our margins are very well managed. Our costs are relatively low, our margins are relatively high. So even when that price, the oil price was coming down, it was really squeezing the producers. We were well within what we needed to maintain profitability. So that's not going to be our issue, I don't think. We have a lot of confidence in H2O and the staff. There's some other hurdles. I'm going to get into that here shortly. The next question, which is a great question, have you approached some of our H2O customers and offered them a discount for prepayment, explaining that this would reduce their waiting time to be served? Perhaps our big oil customers could be an ideal way to obtain financing by having them prepay. Answer, yes. I did that a while ago. Part of the challenge with these producers, we're not dealing with these, Exxon, BP. We're not dealing with these types of companies. We're dealing with producers that have so much of their inventory, so much of their capital tied up in inventory, and essentially their cash on hand is increasingly more valuable to them to just maintain operations. So my argument to them was, hey fellas, if we start treating your oil, you start getting revenue positive. It's a heavy lift. What they did agree to was any of the consumable components for the machine, and there's a couple of things that are consumable that have to be replaced and flushed out and so forth. They're willing to pay for that up front. So we got a portion of it agreed upon, and that's all part of business. It's all part of negotiations. You got to get something, right? So, and they understand where we're at. This is something that we went into at length with them in the very, very beginning. So luckily for us, we took that approach. We're very transparent, even with a cost, to be quite frank, and they understand. And so that's why I'm hesitant to sign any new contracts. I want to get these first contracts serviced, and that's what we're working towards. Okay, so Bass Fisher, what can you tell us about Nathaniel Energy? Is the company currently operating? If so, how many employees? Are they making money? What is the future role of Nathaniel Energy in UAT? So I don't want to get. We have a lot going on. I don't think looking to the future. Let's stay in the present, and the present has a huge upside. So looking to the future, what we're working on in the future, I don't think that's pertinent right now. But what I will say is that technology was acquired to incorporate into the overall business model of H2, and that's in that environmental space. I think I probably did mention a few things that they have over there, but let's get to that when it's time. Maryland, there is a person on StockTwits that does not use Twitter and wanted someone to ask the following: if Baxter and Nextcast were divested, why do they still show on the UATG website? He, I guess, also wanted to know if the ultimate goal is to keep us a fixer or to divest. So some of this is historical and needs to be evaluated for possible revision. However, for now, due to pending legal issues, we are maintaining the status quo. I don't want to go into what our strategy is. That wouldn't be smart. What I will say is, it is my absolute intention to recover the value paid for those assets. And I'm resolute in this. Okay, this is something that I'm not going to let go, and we are going to move on. But right now is not the time. There's many factors I don't want to get in. I don't want to say too much, but we're going to focus on what we need to focus on with H2O, and the other issues will be addressed. That's a commitment I'll make to all the shareholders. It's going to be addressed. Okay, so next question is, I would like to know specifically what the company needs to do to become more palatable in the mind of the lenders. Along with that, I would like to know what actions are taking place to remedy the situation and the time frame for those conditions to be met. Okay, so the vast majority of lenders that have evaluated H2O, they are arriving, not all, but they are arriving at the conclusion they want to see a production period. They want to see the first unit built, put in place, and they want to see at least, and this is one of the things that triggers the SBA, a 30-day cycle of payment. Then we have access to those credit lines. So, we're left with dealing with lenders that are willing to accept risk, and that is accepting risk on both sides. There's a couple of, without operating history, I should say. And, this is understandable because there's going to be a give and take on both sides. And we have to, and this is something I just mentioned a few minutes ago, we have to make sure that we get terms that are that we assess as fair for both sides. What do I mean by this? If we have a unit that's doing with a cost of about $200,000, it's generating $200,000 a month, we need to have a loan or some type of facility that allows us to pay but also bank so that we can continue financing the additional units. You say, well, Alex, if you're going to get a line of credit, why do you care? We don't need to build 3 units. We need to build 20, 25 plus units. and that's going to take a lot of cash. And we need to make sure that we have all resources, all financial resources at our disposal. So I need to make sure that these terms, you know, support the growth of the business model. If you put all your eggs in one basket, but you can't pay it back, now we're defaulting on a loan. That's not good. And I also don't want to really burden H2O where there's no leeway. What if something goes wrong? What if we put a unit in place and the unit's down for a week? I mean, God forbid, right? What if it goes down for a week? Well, why would it go down for a week? What if there's a part that's proprietary that has to be manufactured, and what if there's a 2-3 day lead time, a week, 2 weeks? Anything can happen. I've been doing this long enough to know. It's not the stuff that we know and we prepare for. It's the stuff we don't know that's going to, bite you in the rear. And we need to make sure that we have a little bit of a cushion to account for those things that we couldn't account for. So we're moving forward, and we are making progress. And I think, I understand these questions. I understand the tone. From where I'm sitting, it may seem, well, I get it. We're dealing with this, that, and the other. But I also see that this has taken very, very long because we're not dealing with the traditional, mortgage or financing purchase of a car, things that many of the shareholders might be familiar with. You're financing new technology that's not existed in a space that's highly specialized. So you have to take that into consideration. Not that I feel any of that makes it better, but it is one of those things where we are working, and we're over 90% there. It's this last 10% is just, it's a very slow grind and getting people. We've had all kinds of things happen. I could probably get into that a little bit later on, but you'd be surprised. Okay, so we need a definitive timeline for the rest of the year. We need to let us know realistically what is happening. Oh, I'm sorry. This is Paul Nevitz. He wants a definitive timeline, wants a realistic what's going to happen and when it will happen. And if you want the share price to rise, we need solid facts. Okay, so again, I think I was just kind of leading into this without reading the question. I understand the tone, right? And I understand you want facts, you want time. We want the same thing. Unfortunately, when there's so much uncertainty around all these negotiations, they propose something, we counter, and we have to go back and forth, and we are making progress in many areas. But unfortunately, this does take some time. You'd be surprised at some of the things that have stalled us. We have everything, every excuse under the book as to, well, okay, this person's going to be out for a week. This person just went on vacation. He was going through a divorce. Our point of contact. I mean, it's just been. I've never seen business like this in my entire life. But these are some of the things that we're dealing with. I know life happens. There should be contingencies in place. It's a little unprofessional to deal with some of the things we have. That doesn't, and that I'm not saying this is a criticism. We are dealing with some pretty solid people, but I don't think that everyone's running as efficiently, and they're definitely not running as effectively as they need to be because it's affecting our ability to move forward in a timely fashion. Okay, so Jeff, you had stated in your last video news regarding funding being finalized was within a week or two. What is the status of that? How long after until new contracts are signed will funding take as long in the future? Okay, so I'll take the last part first. No, funding's not going to take this long in the future. As soon as we trigger, for example, the SBA, we have 2 lines of credit that can be increased up to $5 million each. That doesn't mean day one it's $5 million, but they start around $500,000. We'll cycle those, and then we'll be able to have those increased. We've been in constant contact with the bank. So what do we need? You say, well, Alex, that's great. What are you going to do? We need the bridge financing to get the first couple of units working, and that's something that we are finalizing. I know that I said we were close at the time. I really believe that because that's what we were being told. And then, things come out of left field. One of them had to focus on another customer that they prioritized over than us, which, if we had other options, we might have gone different routes because that's, I didn't really want to hear that. So, and as far as how long will the new contracts take to get signed? I can have that done today or tomorrow, I should say, right? But I don't want to commit us to something until we know we can perform. The ones we have now, we have very good relationships with. We've explained this to the new customers. They're very understanding. A couple have even insisted, let's just get the paperwork signed. I don't see that as in our best interest. I don't want to create an expectation and fall short. So, uh, any other questions? Okay. 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 Yeah, so that's not going to, I guess, asking that same question. The financing will be very, very quick in the future. It's just triggering the first one, right? Okay, so Justin Duval, with respect to H2O, have any units been delivered? No. First, we need to finalize that financing. Some of these components have gone up in pricing. So tanks, I know the tanks are available. The trailer is available. We're in constant contact with the suppliers. I know Stan was contacting them today. I think we're going to have things buttoned up relatively soon. I know I've said that in the past, so I don't want to say that again, but we have commitments. I've got to finalize some of those terms. They'll get signed, and I promise you, I'll report it to you then. I don't know that we put out a press release. Maybe we will. I don't know, but we'll let you know when the financing is completed and when those units are being built. Okay. Bull Flex Daily. Financing doesn't seem closer than it was 6 months ago. If I'm wrong, then clearly detail I am. Okay, so I think I've kind of beat this with a dead horse. I believe we are closer. We're 90% there. It's that last 10%. It's just not done yet, and we don't really have a defined timeline. Other than this, I do think we're close, and I understand the frustration that many of you might have hearing that, because I'm frustrated. Everyone here is frustrated, but we are making progress, and this is something that we are working on every single day. We're not taking a week off or a day off here and there. I am literally on the phone every day, all day. I know some of you have tried to call me. Some of you gotten a hold of me, but it's been, we're not stopping until this is done. We're going to get this done. And then we're going to move on to a few other things. I just got to get the ball rolling with them. And then we'll focus on things. You asked about Nathaniel. We're going to get back to the water because we have clients that we're engaging in. Again, I don't want to get into that, but the water is a pretty significant deal. We need to make sure we can move forward on that. So I'll button this up now. I know this is kind of going on a little long. I apologize for that. And I will say this, even though you're frustrated, thank you very much for taking the time out and sending the questions in. I genuinely appreciate, someone stopping their day, calculating a question, formulating a question, and sending it over to us. I know you don't have to do that, but I appreciate it. I'm sure the other shareholders appreciate it, because a lot of people may have questions, but they're not going to send the question in. So, again, thank you very much. And even those that are frustrated will call and let me know how much they support us. Hey, Alex, we got to get this going. I appreciate that as well. So we are working on it, and we're going to get it done. Any other questions, send them in, and then we'll on the next update video, we'll include those in. If I missed someone's question real quick, just send that directly to me, and I'll either respond directly to you, or we'll put it out to the group. Depends on the question. I don't want this to be, we're not having a question where we're eliminating all the other shareholders, right? So we'll send it in, and I apologize. It was unintentional if I missed any questions. Okay, thank you, everyone, and I look forward to talking to you next time. Thank you.